Today, we're taking a look inside, really deep inside, at the most complex thing we know, that 3-pound organ in your skull.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission today is to explore this really foundational idea from neuroscience, which is that the conscious mind, the part of you listening right now, well, it's functionally just a tiny, tiny fraction of the whole operation.
Right. We're sort of challenging that age-old assumption,
Right.
that consciousness is the CEO, the captain steering the ship.
Yeah.
Instead, we're looking at this revolutionary claim that the conscious self, it's more like a tiny stowaway on a huge steamship. It takes credit for the journey, but it's all this massive kind of alien engineering happening below deck that's actually driving everything.
That perspective, wow, it changes everything about how you see yourself, doesn't it? I mean, for centuries, our culture, our laws, philosophy, it's all built on us being rational actors making conscious choices.
Yeah. Exactly. And this view suggests we're now facing, well, a sort of modern fall from the center of ourselves. It's a big shift, maybe like when Galileo told us the Earth wasn't the center of the universe.
That makes sense. It's a dethroning in a way.
And that feeling of alienation, it's kind of earned, because when you really look at the brain, you are looking at alien computational material. So many aspects of your personality, your emotions, your everyday experience, they're just inseparably tied to this vast, wet, chemical electrical network.
And it's mostly operating in the dark, out of sight.
Largely, yes.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's see how this automated machinery actually works. The first big point, and it seems critical from our sources, is this timing problem.
Yeah.
Consciousness is almost always late to the party.
Right. It's always catching up.
Yeah.
And we see this playing out in, well, even simple experiments about choice. Take that study where researchers asked men to rate how attractive different women's faces were.
Yeah.
Now, the participants didn't know this, but some photos had women with slightly dilated pupils. That subtle physiological cue, sometimes linked to sexual interest or readiness.
Ah, right. So what happened?
Well, the results were pretty clear. The men consistently rated the women with the dilated eyes as more attractive.
Okay, makes sense.
But here's the kicker. When they were asked why they chose those faces, they had absolutely no idea, no insight into their real decision-making.
So they just made stuff up.
They did. They invented reasons like, oh, she looks kind, or I liked her facial structure. Their brain acted on the signal, the dilated pupils, but their conscious mind, totally unaware of the actual reason.
Wow, so the unconscious system is working fast, making the calculation first.
Exactly. And we experience this all the time, don't we? Like you're driving and maybe your foot is already moving towards the brake before you consciously register, oh, that car ahead stopped, or hey, there's a kid running near the road.
Yeah, that happens. It feels almost automatic.
Because it is. The whole process, seeing it, assessing risk, starting the movement, that whole program runs before the conscious you is even fully aware a decision was needed.
So if the brain's buzzing with all this incredible activity behind the scenes, how do we, the conscious part, stay informed at all?
Well, there's a great analogy for that. Imagine the brain is like a huge country constantly churning out data, right? Consciousness isn't the, super dense internal report detailing every single transaction.
It's more like the headline.
Exactly. It's the highly filtered, summarized newspaper headline. Maybe like a USA Today headline brief. Gets the gist, not the full, dense New York Times article.
Okay, I like that. Quick summary.
And the consequence of that summary system is, well, by the time you read that mental headline, the really important action, it's already happened.
Right. The deals were made, the calculations done.
All behind the scenes. And we just get the digestible final summary with surprisingly little access to how it all went down.
And the ultimate proof of this speed gap, is maybe in high-level sports, like baseball.
Oh, absolutely. Think about a professional pitcher throwing a 100-mile-per-hour fastball.
Okay, that's fast.
Incredibly fast. It takes only about 0.4 seconds to reach the plate. But conscious awareness, just the act of registering the ball and forming a thought about it that takes longer, maybe around half a second.
Yeah, you literally can't wait to consciously see it and then decide to swing. You'd miss every time.
You'd miss every single time. And here's where it gets really interesting. Hitting that ball is only possible because the body relies completely on these super fast unconscious circuits. They actually predict the ball's trajectory based on these built-in hardwired models of physics.
The brain's predicting the future.
In a way, yes. It's predicting where the ball will be far faster than the conscious mind can even observe where it is right now. If the batter waited for that conscious summary headline. Always too late.
Okay, so if the unconscious mind is running the show ahead of schedule, It must also be basically constructing the reality we experience moment to moment, right? Our intuition tells us vision is just easy, accurate, like opening our eyes and just seeing what's there.
Right, it feels effortless. But the sources are really clear that intuition is, well, it's dead wrong. Vision is an active construction job.
It has to be. Why?
Well, partly because we have these huge gaps in the data coming in. Think about common visual illusions. They often reveal this unconscious inference, this guesswork. For instance, everyone has a big blind spot in each eye.
Yeah, I've heard of that, where the optic nerve connects.
Exactly. And it's not small. It's a patch large enough you could fit 17 full moons inside it, yet we're completely unaware of it.
So how do we not notice this giant hole in what we see?
Because your brain actively fills it in. It doesn't just see nothing there. It literally invents a patch of whatever the background pattern is. It constructs a seamless reality for you, even where the data is completely missing.
It's making stuff up to keep things smooth.
Precisely. And this construction work relies heavily on built-in assumptions. Here's another example. Your brain assumes light always comes from above. Always.
Because that's how it usually is in nature, with the sun.
That's the evolutionary logic, yeah. So if you look at a picture of, say, flat circles, but one has shading on the bottom edge, your brain automatically makes it pop out, look like a bump or a bulge.
Right.
But if the shading is on the top edge, suddenly it looks like a dent, a dimple going inwards.
And I don't consciously think, light from above.
No, you have no conscious access to that assumption. You're just the beneficiary of the machinery's conclusion about what the world looks like based on that rule.
So this constructed, limited reality we each live in, that's what researchers call the Umwelt, our own little sensory bubble.
That's the term, yes, that Umwelt. It's our subjective slice of reality. And it contrasts with the Umgebung, the much bigger objective reality that's actually out there.
And you said our Umwelt is thin?
Terrifyingly thin, really. Think about the electromagnetic spectrum. We only perceive this tiny, tiny fraction of it, like less than a 10 trillionth.
Wow.
Everything else, all the TV signals, the radio waves, cell phone signals, X-rays, they're all flowing through us right now, this very moment, and we are utterly blind to it.
We just accept the reality presented to us.
We do. Just like, say, a bloodhound, with its incredible sense of smell, doesn't feel like there's a hole where human scent isn't present. Or how a pit viper senses infrared heat. It doesn't feel lacking because it can't see the colors we see. We live within our evolved sensory limits.
And if we needed more proof that perception is really subjective, uniquely built for each brain, we just need to look at something like synesthesia.
Exactly. We learned that maybe about 1 in 100 people who are otherwise perfectly normal experience this blending of senses.
It's like hearing colors.
Or tasting shapes.
Or seeing days of the week as having specific colors, like Tuesday always being, say, magenta for them.
That's why it really is. And the existence of synesthesia is quite profound. It demonstrates very clearly that just tiny microscopic changes in how your brain is wired can lead to entirely different realities. My experience of blue might be fundamentally different from yours, maybe more like your experience of C-sharp note.
So it proves the brain isn't just passively receiving reality. It's actively determining what it perceives.
Absolutely. And we're just along for the ride inside our own, custom-built sensory world.
Okay, realizing our reality is custom-made and our decisions are often automated. It kind of naturally leads to thinking about internal contradictions, doesn't it? We all feel pulled in different directions sometimes. That sense of division. Walt Whitman had that great line, "Do I contradict myself? Very well, then I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes."
That captures it perfectly. And the sources really back this up. The brain isn't one single unified mind or executive. It's much more like a parliament or a team of rivals.
A team of rivals, meaning different parts competing.
Constantly. It runs on competition between all these different internal factions or networks. You've got rational parts, emotional parts, drives focused on short-term gain, others looking at long-term consequences, and they're all sort of vying for control, all believing they know the right way to handle things, to control the single output channel, your behavior.
We can actually see this battle playing out in things like moral dilemmas, like the classic trolley problem.
Oh, definitely. That's a great example. If you're asked, would you throw a switch to divert a runaway trolley so it kills one person on the side track instead of 5 on the main track?
Most people say yes, right? It feels logical utilitarian.
It does. And studies show that kind of impersonal decision tends to activate the more rational, calculating, utilitarian part of the brain.
But then there's the other version.
Right, the
Yeah.
footbridge scenario. Same outcome, save 5 by sacrificing 1. But this time, you have to physically push a large person off a bridge into the trolley's path to stop it.
Oof. Yeah, that feels different. Much harder.
Most people say no to that. It feels wrong, emotionally abhorrent. And brain scans show this version lights up our emotional networks, the circuits involved in processing social cues and aversion to, well, up-close personal violence.
So the brain is literally running two competing programs. Cold analysis versus gut feeling.
Exactly. It's a battle between analyzing external events and reacting to our internal state, our emotions. The two systems are often at war.
And this internal conflict, this team of rivals, it explains why we sometimes have to, negotiate with our future selves, doesn't it? This idea of the Ulysses contract.
Absolutely. Ulysses tying himself to the mast so he wouldn't steer towards the siren song. We do the same thing. We bind our future behavior because we know our short-term impulsive self is likely to win the internal vote if we give it half a chance.
Like setting up automatic deductions for a savings plan.
Perfect example. Or maybe joining one of those old Christmas Club accounts where you couldn't easily access the money until December. We know our later self, the one closer to the temptation, will probably just, blow the money if it's easily available. We're trying to give the long-term planner faction a leg up.
This team of rivals idea even sheds light on some confusing public incidents, maybe? Like the sources mentioned the Mel Gibson anecdote.
Right, that was a difficult one. His drunken anti-Semitic tirade during an arrest, followed later by very sober, seemingly sincere apologies. It led to this big debate, which one was the real Mel Gibson.
A lot of people jump to the conclusion that alcohol must be some kind of truth serum, right? That it just revealed his hidden true self.
That was the common take, but the sources suggest a more nuanced view based on this team of rivals model. Alcohol isn't necessarily revealing a single hidden truth, it's more likely just tipping the internal balance.
Also,
It impairs the frontal lobes, the parts involved in long-term planning, reflection, and impulse control. So it basically gives the short-term impulsive, less reflective factions more power in that moment.
okay. So the truth isn't one or the other.
The truth, according to this model, is that a brain can simultaneously harbor conflicting sentiments. You can have both racist and non-racist impulses or learned patterns residing within the same system. The conflict itself, the ongoing battle between these different parts, that's the truth of the system. It's not about finding the one true self.
Okay. So if our actions are the outcome of these competing subagents, these internal elections, influenced by things like neurochemistry or, alcohol, where does that leave us on personal responsibility, on culpability? That's the big question, isn't it?
That is the crucial question for society, yes. What does all this mean when things go wrong?
Because this is where it gets really uncomfortable, I think. If biology determines behavior to this extent, the immediate reaction is, well, does that mean we just let everyone off the hook?
Yeah.
Every criminal, every bad decision. It sounds like dissolving accountability altogether.
That's absolutely the core societal anxiety. It feels like a slippery slope. But the argument from the sources isn't about abandoning justice. It's about refining it, making it more, biologically informed.
Okay.
And they present these really compelling, sometimes disturbing case studies that show just how tightly behavior can be tied to physical brain states, cases that make the idea of a fully autonomous conscious chooser seem, increasingly difficult to defend.
Like the Charles Whitman case. That one's pretty famous.
Extremely relevant here. You have this high IQ Eagle Scout, seemed like a model citizen, who then commits a horrific mass shooting from the University of Texas Tower in 1966.
But he left notes asking for an autopsy, right?
Yeah.
Saying he didn't understand his own violent thoughts?
He did. And the autopsy revealed a significant brain tumor, a glioblastoma pressing against his amygdala. That's a key region involved in emotion, fear, and aggression. His rational parts were clearly aware something was wrong, battling these urges, but the underlying biology seems to have tipped the scales tragically.
Wow. And there are other cases, too.
Yes, like the man identified as Alex in the research. He suddenly developed an overwhelming consuming interest in child pornography. It came out of nowhere.
Okay.
But then surgeons removed a tumor discovered in his orbitofrontal cortex, an area involved in judgment and impulse control, and the urges completely vanished.
Just like that.
Just like that. But then, months later, the urges returned with the same intensity. A scan showed the tumor had started to regrow. After a second surgery removed the regrowth, the urges disappeared again. The compulsion was directly, undeniably linked to the physical mass in his brain.
It's incredibly direct linkage. It wasn't some abstract choice.
It really challenges that notion. And it's not just tumors. Even medications can drastically alter the balance in the team of rivals. Remember the Parkinson's patients?
Right, the ones who developed gambling problems.
Exactly. Some patients treated with dopamine agonists, like pramipexole, to manage their motor symptoms suddenly developed compulsive gambling habits. Intense new urges they couldn't control.
But it was the medication.
It seemed to be. When doctors lowered the dosage, the compulsion often vanished. Raise it again, it might come back. The behavior was inextricably linked to the specific neurochemistry being altered by the drug.
Okay, so given all this, Whitman, Alex, the gamblers, what's the central argument then for the legal system?
The core idea is that culpability, our concept of blameworthiness, shouldn't really depend on the limits of our current technology. We can see these biological links when there's a tumor or a specific drug involved because we have the tools to detect those.
But there could be countless other biological factors we can't see yet. Subtle genetic predispositions, developmental issues, hormonal imbalances.
Exactly. So the argument goes, free will, if it even exists in the way we intuitively imagine it, is likely such a small factor just riding on top of this enormous automated machinery that for the practical purposes of social policy and law, it might be irrelevant. We should perhaps apply what Eagleman calls the principle of sufficient automatism.
Sufficient automatism. Okay, so instead of focusing on blame, which is looking backward and asking, were they morally responsible, we should shift towards biology and management, looking forward.
That's the proposal. Shift the focus from retrospective blame to prospective risk assessment and management. The goal isn't exculpation. It's not about saying, oh, it wasn't your fault, you're free to go. It's about refinement and prediction.
So the question the legal system should ask isn't, did they freely choose to do this terrible thing?
Perhaps not primary. Perhaps the more useful questions are, what is the likelihood of this person repeating this behavior? And what tailored interventions based on their specific biology and brain function can we implement to reduce that risk?
So moving towards customized rehabilitation.
Potentially, yes. Imagine things like using real-time brain imaging feedback to help people strengthen their frontal lobe control over impulsive cravings, or developing targeted neurochemical interventions. It's about addressing the underlying mechanism, trying to ensure the system doesn't run that harmful program again, rather than just assigning moral blame based on an increasingly shaky notion of free choice. #tag outro.
So we've taken this deep dive today into our inner cosmos, and it really involves accepting this scientific dethronement of the conscious mind from its central perch.
A fall from the center.
Yeah. But like other big shifts in understanding Copernicus, Darwin this fall doesn't necessarily lead to a diminished view of humanity, does it? The sources suggest it leads to a more sophisticated, maybe more illuminating, and even, well, wondrous view of what actually makes us tick.
I think that's right. We get a much better handle on the limitations, yes, but also the incredible complexity of the mechanisms driving our most fundamental behaviors, thoughts, and feelings.
It helps explain so much.
Indeed. And it helps us confront something called instinct blindness.
Instinct blindness, what's that?
It's our tendency, our failure really, to appreciate the massive, incredibly complicated neural circuitry that underlies the things that feel easy to us.
Like catching a ball, or understanding a joke, or recognizing a face instantly.
Exactly. We look at something that feels effortless, like being attracted to someone or demanding fairness or reading emotion on a face, and we assume it takes no real work because it feels automatic.
But the paradox is?
The paradox is that those very acts, the ones that feel most natural and automatic, are precisely the ones that require the most complex, specialized, and highly evolved neural networks. We grossly underestimate the sheer computational power needed for the simple stuff.
Because it runs so smoothly, so unconsciously, we don't see the gears turning.
Precisely. We're blind to the instinctual machinery.
So maybe that's the final thought to leave everyone with today.
Let's do this. Consider this. What easy part of your daily life, the thing that feels most natural, most effortless to you, what seemingly simple act is actually underpinned by the most complex, the most massive, and the most invisible machinery humming away inside your skull?
And how often do you, the conscious you, take credit for the incredibly sophisticated work of a team you didn't even know was on the payroll?
Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.